Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Canon Chatter TV with me, Stephen. And as ever, I'm joined by my co-host, Granville. How are you, Granville?
I'm good, thank you. Hope everybody is fine wherever you are in the world.
Good. Tonight we want to have a bit of a chat about yesterday's 3-3 draw, and I will ask you about that in a minute. But we also want to touch on some stuff to do with racism and the Glenn Kamara incident from the other night. And we will finish off tonight then talking about the poll that we ran on Twitter over the last 20 hours or so, just asking about your feelings on Aubameyang. So with that said, I think I will roll the title credit and we will get started.
Arsenal have gone through an entire league campaign without losing. The first time it's happened.
So good evening. As you can see, we've stuck around at the London Stadium. We turned up here on Friday night. And unfortunately, the Arsenal team didn't turn up here until 35 minutes into the match yesterday. How are you feeling today after it all?
Yeah, so I think obviously a little bit of time has passed since the actual result. So not feeling as glum or as frustrated as I was in the first half, like first 35, 40 minutes. Because I think, to be honest, let's be honest, the first 35 minutes of that match is probably the worst we've played all season. I would say is the worst we've played or the worst I can remember us playing. And I think 35 minutes in, even when we scored at, 3-1, I just didn't see how we were going to get back into this game because the start was so bad. But regardless of that, and I think we'll go into a bit more detail about that. Regardless of that, second half performance was fantastic. They really lifted their game. And so by the end of the match, just kind of gutted that we didn't win it. So not feeling as frustrated and glum as I was. But yeah, kind of mixed feelings, really. What about yourself? How are you feeling now? Now it's all over.
We had talked about recording this show, or not recording, but doing this stream last night. And you obviously messaged me and said that obviously something had come up, it didn't really suit. And do you know what? I was glad because the mood I was in after that game, yes, we got it back to a draw, but you know what? I was so pissed off with how we played in that first half. It was an absolute disgrace. And I've calmed down today. And already I can feel myself getting worked up because I know we're going to be talking about it. So, yeah, it is what it is. I'm so angry with the performance in the first half. There's just no excuse for it. But we'll come on to that in a few minutes. I want to start off tonight just touching on, we didn't cover it on Friday night because we had a lot to go through on Friday. But I don't know, obviously I'm sure you've seen this, the incident with Slavia Prague game between Rangers and Slavia Prague and Glenn Kamara suffering some alleged racist abuse. I say alleged because we have to, because we obviously, there isn't, hard evidence there other than a couple of players' words for it. I believe it happened. Slavia Prague have a history of it with their players and their fans. So I do believe it happened, but, we can't say for certain. I know it's something we've discussed personally, in private, just around racism and stuff. But what did you make of this incident? How did you feel about
it? To be honest, it just seems as though it's just another example of, quite blatant racism, that is in the beautiful game that we all love. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I was surprised by it because it just seems to be, happening all the time, whether it be social media, whether it be on the pitch, whether it be, in the crowds. Racism seems to be part of football. It's something that needs to be eradicated from football, but, there's no point sitting here, and closing our eyes or pretending we don't see or hear it. It's a massive issue in wider society, but most definitely, obviously this show, this platform is about football. And it's something that is, is plaguing football on all levels. So I wasn't surprised, but I was just disappointed that, in the year, 2021, this kind of thing, this kind of blatant racism is still actually taking place. So when I see things like this, it massively angers me. I'm English. I was born in this country, but my father was mixed race. My grandfather was black, so my heritage is Caribbean. And I just see, so many examples. I grew up speaking to my dad, and my dad would tell me his experiences of racism in this country, his experiences of racism even within the sport, what he saw as a fan. And it doesn't feel like, I think at times it felt like we've moved forward, but at the moment it just feels as though we've actually made no progress. And if anything, we're actually going backwards. So it's really disappointing. It's really upsetting that, the player would have to experience this. He's out there, he's just doing his job, and nobody, should be on the end of any kind of, racial abuse in any circumstance and in any situation. And for me, I just think, the powers that be, they're just not doing enough. We can, we will sit here and we'll discuss it, and, people will talk about it, and there'll be marches and protests, and all sorts. But at the end of the day, I don't believe you're going to ever be able to get rid of racism. And I don't think that's what people are generally asking for. But when there is clear and obvious evidence that racism has happened, you're looking at that match and you can see the emotion involved with the players and, the player who it's happened to and his teammates. You see how they've reacted. Something has definitely been said, which has significantly upset him and his teammates. It's then for the powers that be to actually take, a very, kind of serious and significant stance in order to eradicate it, but they're not. Nothing's actually being done of any kind of merit. These football clubs will only take accountability and responsibility for their players or their fans' words or actions if they're hit hard enough. If they're not hit hard enough, they will just continue to ignore the subject and act as if it never happened, when quite clearly something really, really offensive has taken place in that match.
Yeah, so I mean, again, we've discussed this before, and we find ourselves in quite a unique position in that, we tick a lot of boxes between us, and that you do come from a mixed race background, and your Caribbean heritage and stuff, and you have experienced in your own life, you've experienced racism, and we've talked about this again, as I say, privately. And if you want to share any of your experiences, feel free. If you don't, it's completely understandable. It's a private thing. For me, then, I've not experienced so much racism in my life, given where I'm from, which, I'm sure most people can guess from my accent. And if you can't, I grew up, and I still live in a little town called Bangor, which is about 11 miles outside of Belfast in Northern Ireland. So what I've experienced more in my life would be classed as sectarianism rather than racism. Racism, growing up with the extent of maybe, a few people of Pakistani origin or Indian, Chinese, that that was the only sort of races that I was subjected to. Sort of word that I'm trying to think of the right word here. That that were
kind of exposed to.
Exposed to, yes, that's the word I'm looking for. So that's the only other races other than obviously white. That I would really, there wasn't. I mean, in Northern Ireland growing up, there wasn't an awful lot of sort of black people or people of color. There is more now, and it's certainly it's a growing multicultural thing since the peace agreements and stuff. But we would have dealt with a lot of sectarianism, and I've grown up with certain streets you couldn't walk down wearing a particular top. If you were a Rangers fan, there were certain streets you couldn't walk down. If you were a Celtic fan, there was certain streets you couldn't walk down. I've lived through my own hometown being bombed twice. I've lived through dozens upon dozens of bomb scares and being from places, and shootings, and hearing people that I not necessarily an awful lot of people that I know, but people I know of being killed, threats against the security forces, people in the police and how secure their lives had to be. And, so it's a different thing, but it's the same thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's living with oppression because people have hate in them for no real reason. And I say that because I do actually understand Northern Irish and Irish history and politics. And, I remember being on a certain road. I'm not going to say anything, but I was on a certain road in Belfast, and those two little kids came up to me, and I was passing by an Indian takeaway. And it was the time I was working I was selling shop signage. So I was out measuring up a shop, and it was the shop next door to an Indian takeaway. And these two kids couldn't have been any more than about 7, 8 years old, came up to me. And as I walked past the Indian takeaway, they turned around to me and went, "Here, mate, don't go in there. They're dirty, smelly, this and that." And I just thought to myself, you're 7 and 8 years old. How do you learn this? First of all, the language, but why have you that hate in your body? They're no different from us, and that it really upset me. And that kind of summed up how things are here. The life's an awful lot better in Northern Ireland. It really is. There are still elements of sectarianism that go on. There's still, and yes, there is definitely elements now of maybe a bit more racism, but it's not to the extent that it would have been, and it's certainly not to the extent that obviously maybe in mainland Britain, would be affected, or other parts of the world. Certainly, over in the States and everywhere else, even Africa and stuff. South Africa. The very famous issues there. You're right. We will never fully eradicate racism, but more needs to be done. UEFA have come out and said that basically nothing's going to happen. Pretty much nothing's going to happen to Slavia Prague. Chris Boyd, who played for Rangers, has actually come out and said that Slavia Prague should be kicked out of the competition. And he did state that it's not about getting Rangers back in. If anything, Arsenal should just be given a bye to the semi-final. And not that I want Arsenal to have a bye. I don't like the thought of not playing the rounds, because it would taint it. If we won the tournament, it would then taint it. But something more needs to be done. There needs to be heavier punishment. If any team is found guilty, and even if their fans are found guilty, there has to be heavier punishment than just a fine. These clubs, a fine's a drop in the ocean to them. They don't care. It's the same as someone said the other week. We were talking on Twitter about fining Aubameyang for turning up late rather than not letting them play the North London derby. Well, wasn't multi-millionaire care about a few £100 fine?
That's it.
It doesn't. They don't care. Banning a team or kicking a team out of European competition. That's a major thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. But there needs to be more done.
Yeah.
Even the whole. And I know now you're starting to see a lot of the players now not agreeing with the whole Black Lives Matter, taking the knee sort of before the game and standing up. And we actually had this conversation because I had said to you before about our own stance on it and what we wanted to do, trying to think of something. And I had said about standing up to racism rather than kneeling down. And I understand why it's done, but I don't necessarily agree with it. I think we should be standing up to racism, not kneeling down, and sort of almost bowing to it. We should be going, get up, stand up to it. We should be united together.
Yeah, the thing, I feel bad for Black Prague players. Yeah, can you imagine actually being, a Black professional footballer and playing in one of those, countries where, racism is even more rife, than it is. Because let's be clear, racism is a much bigger problem in, other European leagues than it is in the Premier League. Not to say it's not there, because it's quite clear it's there in the Premier League, but it's definitely a bigger problem across parts of Europe. But I think just kind of touching on some of the things you said, you know, we will never get rid of racism, and that's because you can't change everybody's way of thinking. Everybody's, we're talking about some of the, you're talking about 7-8-year-olds saying certain things, that comes from generational racism, families that those views and those ways of thinking have just been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And the only way in which you're going to really be able to change that is if the actual individual is open to, changing their opinion or being educated. But nobody's born racist. So those 7 and 8-year-olds, that you experienced, saying those things, that's learned behavior. That's come from parents, that's come from grandparents, that's come from social network. And kids, as I've got kids, you've got kids. Kids are like sponges. So, you put a kid in a situation and the parent continuously swears, sooner or later, some of the words coming out of that kid's mouth is going to be a swear word. They literally take in all the things that happen around them, and that's how racism continues. It's a learned thing. It's taught, by people's older peers. So yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one in terms, because it's a massive problem. It's not just football. It's a big problem in wider society. I've experienced racism in several different forms. From being a teenager, just your average kind of teenager, no criminal record, going to college about my business and getting stopped by police, 12 times in a 4-week period. Same police officers, same badge numbers, just stopping me, saying I fit the description, or me and my mates fit the description of, a robbery that's happened or something. And it's crazy because part of my growing up, my dad actually taught me how to interact with police, which is crazy, because when he came to this country, there was an issue. So it was like, okay, so if you get stopped by the police, this is what you say, this is what you don't say. It was like, I was like 12, 13, like listening to my father telling me how I should and shouldn't interact with the police. And I was just completely clueless as to why he was even telling me this, until I actually had experiences with the police, and all of that kind of useful information that he kind of imparted on me kind of kicked in, and I thought, okay, there's an issue here. And then we later had another conversation, and it kind of all unraveled. I've been called a mongrel, which at the time I was too young to even know what it meant. And I had a conversation with my dad, and he kind of explained, obviously the narrative of that word and where it comes from, and why it was potentially used against me. And I think the last type of racism that I've most recently experienced was only a couple of years ago. I moved from South London, where I predominantly grew up. I moved to East London, which is a predominantly Asian area. And I was walking to the supermarket, Iceland's, with my son and my daughter, and there was a little old lady, sweet little old lady, walking. I saw her in the distance. She was approaching me, and I can't even repeat on YouTube Live the things that she said to me in the presence of my two children. If you could imagine all the kind of derogatory words you would use against a person, of an ethnic minority, particularly a black ethnic minority, she used every other word you could think of. And that was really shocking for me, because, like I said, it was so blatant, it was so vocal, it was in the presence of my children, and it really, really rattled me. You could even probably kind of tell, like, even the way I'm speaking, it really, really rattled me, because I was just like, wow, I think sometimes we kind of fall into a sense of security, and we kind of think, because it's not so much in your face anymore, how it was back in the day, with signs saying no Irish, no dogs, no blacks, we kind of think it's not there. And when something like that happens, it's a massive wake-up call, in terms of just like, racism is real, and it's very much, evident. It's very much there in modern life, in modern society. And I think the whole Glenn Kamara thing is just another example of just, a disgusting behavior from a fellow professional And yeah, it's going to continue, as you said. Lastly, it's going to continue until the powers that be, in terms of these massive football federations, actually stand up and actually take some serious action. Unless clubs unless they actually feel the accountability for what their professionals and what their fans do, they're not going to take a blind bit of notice. They're really not. So more needs to be done. Whether or not more will be done, that's the big question, because I think we're all sitting here waiting for more to be done. I think we've been sitting here waiting for more to be done for however long, So it's not great. It really isn't great. And it just seems like every single day now, all the, kind of rival fans aside, we're all human beings. Whether we support United, Spurs, Arsenal, Celtic, Rangers, we're all human beings. So when, we see, human beings being treated differently or in a negative way just because of the way they look or the religion, their particular faith or their particular gender, or it goes even as far as, their sexual orientation, whatever it is, that divides us, that makes us unique. It's just not right and it's not fair. And, more needs to be done about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I want to go on record now and say that, again, we've had this conversation and, we set up this channel very much with the intention of bringing you guys, the fans on. And, this is probably going to be, it's not the last show that it's just going to be you and me, but, we want to, from the Liverpool game, we've started lining some people up to come on and do the preview shows and the review shows and things like that. And we are going to be doing some other different types of shows going forward. And again, we want the fans on. We want you guys to actually come on and get involved and have your say on screen. But we agreed that for us, it's a zero tolerance policy. So, if you are watching this thinking, I'd love to get on, do, get in contact. We want as many people on as possible. But any racism, any homophobia, any discrimination, it's a zero tolerance. We will just hit the remove from screen button and you will be removed. It's not much in the grand scheme of things, but it's our way of saying, no, we won't put up with it anymore. So, that's just, I don't want to sound like we're giving people warnings now, but, I do want to make it clear that, it's not right. It's not acceptable. Mm-hmm. And we will do what we can from our point of view as, YouTubers. I don't like to use the phrase, but, as YouTubers and as content makers, we have to do everything we can. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And that goes for every YouTuber out there, everybody that's making content. You need to hold yourselves to higher standards and make sure that doesn't happen on your channels. Because by doing that, it can hopefully start to make a difference in the stands and the terraces, and in your local communities as well. So, that said, shall we move on and have a chat about that diabolical stuff from yesterday? So,
where do we start?
Where do we start? Well, I think the first place to start is the lineup. So, here we go. So he started with Leno in goal. It was predictable. He went with Chambers again at right back. And I understand why he did it. I think he's gone with Chambers has the height over the likes of Cedric. And combat that aerial threat that West Ham would have generally. Which I think is also why he's gone for Mari over Gabriel. Because as I said the other night, I don't think Gabriel needs a rest. He's not going to be away on international duty, so he doesn't really need a rest. So my only assumption is that he's gone for Mari because of his height. To be able to, West Ham will typically throw a lot of crosses in. I still personally would have gone for Gabriel because I think, some of their players have pace, especially Mikel Antonio. Gabriel could have handled him much better than Mari would have. So he got David Luiz, Mari, and of course, Kieran Tierney. Then in the midfield, we had Xhaka and Partey. Odegaard in the 10 with Saka on the left and Aubameyang on the right, which I thought was a bit strange. Why he decided to, firstly, why he brought Saka back in. of anybody, Saka probably needed a rest more than any of them, especially coming back, from an injury the other day. So I thought it was a bit strange. I thought Martinelli might have been brought in, as we discussed the other night. We both put him in our starting 11. And then Lacazette up front. And obviously, looking at that lineup, you look at it and you think, well, okay, with the exception of Chambers, it's pretty much, and maybe Mari, it's pretty much a team we would have all picked anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm worried now about Liverpool. I genuinely am worried about Liverpool because obviously Arteta set his stall out that if you're late for a match, you don't get picked. And none of these players turned up until after 35 minutes. So does that mean none of them can start against Liverpool?
That's a really good point. Yeah.
It was diabolical. So, I mean, what was your first thoughts on the team?
Yeah. I have to think about this team as and when I saw it and not on the basis of how the kind of game unraveled. So, going back to 2:00 or whatever it was on Saturday afternoon, I was gobsmacked that Chambers was picked at right back. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and say, I thought he should have played. He got that many assists. No, I was absolutely gobsmacked that Chambers was in the side. I just couldn't see, I get the whole maybe aerial thing, but I just couldn't see the logic behind it. I just thought, if Cedric's not playing, then we'd be better, having Bellerin back there. But yeah, I just couldn't see it. So I was really surprised by that. I wasn't surprised to see Leno in goal. As we've said on several shows, I wasn't surprised to see David Luiz in the right centre back position. And as well, I wasn't surprised to see Mari where he was. However, I was a little bit concerned when I saw Mari. And that's no kind of reflection of him. It's more kind of a reflection of some of the, like you were saying, the West Ham players. Antonio is a very physical player. I wouldn't even say he's a very prolific, striker. He's not even always played up front. He's kind of played more. He's kind of made that position his own with the lack of kind of attacking options West Ham have had. But he's a very physical player. He likes to kind of bully defenders back into them. Make his presence, feel, felt. So I thought Gabriel would have been a lot more better equipped to deal with some of the West Ham players than Mari would. But nevertheless, that's who Arteta went with. And then obviously, Tierney, he was picked as we all expected. The midfield, we went for it, and it seems as though that is, the midfield that that Arteta is going to go for, moving forward on a consistent basis. And it makes sense in terms of the options we have available to us at the present moment. I don't really know why we had Aubameyang on the right and Saka on the left. It was just a bit weird for me. I just thought, okay, Aubameyang was going to play, but I think, Lacazette at the moment, obviously given that game as well, I think, I'll be honest, I think he's a player right now. We can't drop him. He needs to be in the starting lineup. So I just didn't get why Aubameyang was on the right. I just think play him on the left. If anything, rest Saka if he's not quite there or not quite ready, and play Pepe. But yeah, I was a bit bemused. Like, for me, the lineup, although the lineup was good enough to win the game, and there were some question marks for me. I was just a bit. I wasn't quite sure in terms of like where players were playing, and obviously the inclusion of Chambers. So, although it was a good lineup, and I still looked at it and thought, this lineup is strong enough to win the game, it did leave a couple of questions for me.
Yeah, I was the same, and straight away it was obvious right from the word go. We hadn't turned up. And I was sort of joking aside about not turning up for the first 35 minutes. We didn't turn up, and it was absolutely awful. One person though who did turn up, and unfortunately it's all too often the case for someone I don't particularly rate as a player. He always turns up against us, and he turned up after 15 minutes.
God.
Well, he turned up right from the word go. You could see it, but after Yeah, 15 minutes. He got himself on the score sheet.
Mm-hmm.
It was Antonio rinsed Callum Chambers down the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Got the cross in. Lingard, one touch, set up the volley and into the top corner. It was a good strike. Take nothing away from Lingard. By the way, that's a picture of the back of him because I just can't look at his face.
Yeah, I'm
There's
glad you picked the
something going
picture. Yeah, I'm glad you picked that
Something
one.
going on with his eyebrows that I just can't look at him.
I'm just fed up with the sight of him, to be honest. As an
Yeah,
Arsenal fan.
he does just for some reason turn up against Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good goal. You take nothing away from it.
Yeah.
Chambers should have done so much better.
Yeah.
We as a team should have done so much better.
Yeah.
But it was a good finish. What was your take on it?
Yeah, as you said, like literally from the first whistle, it was clear. I think all the players, I think they probably had a team bonding session the night before that involved bottles of brandy and vodka, because it just seemed like they were completely hanging. They were suffering from hangovers because they just didn't get started. They just were not at the races, and West Ham were. So while we were just half asleep, they were just on point, and they just it's like they sensed it. And I think teams, if they're smart, they'll start to clock that. We're slow starters in a lot of games. And if we actually, if teams actually go for us in the first kind of, 10, 20 minutes, we're kind of there for the taking a lot of the time. And it seems to be a kind of common trend at the moment this season. So the goal itself, Antonio literally just wiped the floor with Chambers. And then obviously set up the goal. It was a beautifully taken goal. I can't take anything away from it. If Odegaard or Smith Rowe banged that in, I'd be talking about it, for years to come. So it was a good goal. But this guy has literally built a career from scoring against Arsenal. Like it's just crazy. Like we see
last 7 starts.
What was that?
Against Arsenal. 5 goals in his last 7 starts against Arsenal.
This is what I'm saying. And if you were to look at the stats, I don't know what the stats are, but I know for a fact, because I see enough on Twitter and social media, that this guy is not a prolific goal scorer from midfield. He's not even a prolific assist maker from midfield. And me, like you, I don't particularly rate him. But like I said, he's built a career playing against Arsenal, because he literally, every time he plays for Arsenal, every time he plays against Arsenal, he turns up and he puts in, arguably, his best performance of the season. So very frustrating start, slow start, great goal, as much as I don't like to say it. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it was an individual error, but, the goal came about because we came out of the block so sluggish and laboured.
Okay, we'll come back to it in a wee sec. I just want to, just something very quickly. Buster's off-topic podcast. I will come back to your question in a wee sec. Buster, if you're still on though, I heard a lot of criticism between yesterday and today of Leno and his positioning for the first 2 goals. So Buster, if you're still on, I know you do a bit of coaching and stuff, and has said before about talking about things from a goalkeeper's point of view. Give us, if you can, just quickly your sort of take. Drop us in the comments or your take on Leno and his positioning for the 2 goals. And while you do that, what did you think? I mean, do you think Leno could have done better for Lingard's goal, or do you think it was just a good strike?
Nah, to be honest, I've got to be honest. I'm no goalkeeping coach. I've got no coaching qualifications. For me, it was a phenomenal strike. I know an expert will probably come on and say, he was in a completely wrong position and so forth. But I support. One of the main reasons why I supported Arsenal, even as a kid, was the type of football we played. I like watching attacking football. Obviously, I like watching attacking football when we're playing it, and when we're predominantly, I don't mind if a team scores 10 as long as we score 12. It's not a problem for me. But yeah, for me, it was just a delicious strike. And I'm not sure many goalkeepers would have had, much chance in that position. But yeah, I'm all for being proven wrong, because I'm no expert.
Okay. And then obviously 2 minutes later, they got a free kick on the edge of the box, which they took really, really quickly and caught the Arsenal defence napping. Tierney was looking the wrong way. They weren't at it at all. I don't know, the whole quick free kick thing.
I don't like it.
The other week with Brighton and stuff. It's either you've got to stop. Yes, it's the attacking team's advantage. Should be up to them. But at the same time, the defense had clearly stopped because they were waiting to line up for the free kick. Expecting it to be a shot from outside the box or a free kick into the box. And the Arsenal defense are guilty in this case. They shouldn't have switched off.
Yeah.
But it's a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
It's one of them laws of the game I'm not too keen on. And it's the same if it's, if Arsenal do it, yeah, we got a goal and great, but I still, in the spirit of the game, why bother doing things like kicking the ball out when someone's got a head injury or, I know this is scrapped a lot of that, but, why bother with any of these sort of, things like that if it's not going to be for everything? Why have some rules where you're sporting and other rules where you're not?
Yeah.
So sorry, just to quickly come back, Buster, thank you. Only goal Leno could have done more on is the second. Having said that, I still can't tell if the shot gets a slight deflection. If it does, it makes a big difference from the distance. Yeah, it does. I mean, it was quick free kick, whipped in, Bowen got the touch and got the goal. And we were 2-0 down very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Do you know what? We had nobody else to blame but ourselves. We really didn't. And it's, I was sitting there and I was just completely deflated.
Yeah.
I really was. I mean, there was no words for what was going on.
Yeah.
And then, you kind of thought to yourself, right, well, this is obviously, this is the time now. These boys need to kick up the arse. They've got to wake up now. But no, they didn't. They continued to play badly, sloppy passing, under-hit passes to nobody, giving the ball away. They weren't closing down. I know I had a bit of a debate with somebody earlier on Twitter. I felt Xhaka was particularly guilty of it yesterday. And I actually think for the whole time he was on, he was not good. The amount of balls he gave away. Party was the same. He gave quite a few away, but he won a lot more back. And he did get a lot of good balls into the likes of Odegaard and stuff. But Xhaka was, I thought he was particularly bad yesterday. And I know I'm not Xhaka's biggest fan, but it doesn't mean I have an agenda against Xhaka because I said he didn't have a good game. So yeah, they kept going. Nice cross in for
the third.
Antonio, who heads it down, and this guy Sushek.
Some season he's having, I tell you.
Yeah. Antonio didn't celebrate because I think Antonio thought that Sushek was offside.
Yeah.
Which I wish he had been, but he wasn't. What were you thinking at this point?
Yeah, after obviously going a goal, 1-0 down, and just to kind of touch upon what you said previously, I literally cannot stand that rule. I'm like you. I think it's a grey area, and I just think, with the way the game is, it needs to just be, either the game stopped and we take the free kick, and you put your spray on the pitch and you get the wall lined up, or you don't. It's one or the other for me. It's just there's too much of a grey area there. But having said that, the Arsenal team were guilty of just switching off completely, and I wasn't very impressed with the second goal. I think Leno, I'm no goalkeeping expert, but he seemed to be in the right area of the goal. It just seemed like it just kind of went through him, really. So I wasn't very impressed. And at that point, I thought, okay, it can't get any worse. We're 2-0 down. But you know what? If we get the next goal, then, and early enough before halftime, then we're still in this game. But when the third one went in, I just thought game, set, match. I got to be completely honest. I just thought this game is over. I'm just thinking 3-0 down. It seemed at that point that the team had given up, that heads had dropped, and I honestly thought at that point we were going to ship 5 or 6. I was thinking, I just can't see. One, I can't believe we're playing this badly. And 2, I just cannot see how we're going to claw ourselves back into this game. So as angry as I was and as annoyed as I was, and I was even really tempted to just switch off the television at that point because, you know, the performance, you know, the goals we were shipping, the commentary, everything about this match was annoying me. And I wanted to switch it off. I even got up and kind of did something in and around the house because for 5 or 10 minutes, I just had to kind of calm down and not watch the telly. And I came running back in when we actually got our first goal. But yeah, at this point, I just thought, yeah, game, set, match. There's no way we're coming back from this. And I kind of thought to myself, look, if we can get 1 or 2 and keep them from scoring, because we just don't need to be embarrassed here. Because at that point, I was embarrassed. It's that simple. I was embarrassed. The performance was an embarrassing performance, but at that point.
Well, I mean, it was, and obviously, we'll go on to then the flip of it, where, you know, we get our 3. But at this point, you know, 35 minutes into the match, did you feel any Arsenal player had done anything worthy of note? Was anybody sort of playing well? I mean, for me personally, I think the only one who can sort of come out of that first 35 minutes with any sort of, I wouldn't even say head held high, but, you know, a little bit of a well done was Odegaard.
Yeah,
I think he was the only one, and even at that, he wasn't wonderful.
Yeah, I think he was the only one that was kind of showing glimpses, you know, of the kind of player that he is, and putting in a, you know, performance. But quite frankly, at that point, I was just done. I was just like, I was done. I was like, I don't even think if there was a player that was having an exceptional game that I would have even noticed it, because it just seemed like every single time they went forward, the ball was in the back of the net. And I just couldn't quite work out, you know, what these guys are doing. I'm just thinking, like, this is West Ham. They're in the top 4. This is a must-win game. This is like, you know, every game between now and the end of the season is a must-win game. And this is a team we need to be taking points off if we've got any hope of finishing in the top 6. And I just thought, how can you go into this game not up for it and starting so slow? You know, it was, at this point, I was done. Literally, I was so embarrassed. I was so angry. And like I said, I just walked out the room and I went and did something else around the house. I had it on, but at that point, I was just kind of done with watching it because I was just so livid.
Yeah, so then 38 minutes, and we can leave his picture up because Souček went up the other end and put it in his own net. Do you know what? At that point, I was starting to feel that West Ham were just starting to feel sorry for us. You know, just thought, well, we'll help them.
Let's give them a goal back. Yeah.
And I don't even want to dwell on it too much. You know, it is what it is. He scored an OG. He had a good game. And we went in at half time, 3-1 down. And you can only assume that, you know, Arteta's team talk involved a rocket and their backsides. Because he cannot have been happy with that performance.
Not at all.
He talks about his non-negotiables and stuff, but I mean, it was ridiculous. I honestly was embarrassed at that point. I really was. And
completely.
You know what? It doesn't matter if we lose and we get relegated. Well, of course it matters, but you know, to me it doesn't matter. I will always support Arsenal.
Yeah.
I will have moments where I'll throw the head up and I'll go, I've said I'm done. I'm not supporting them anymore. But of course I will. You know, I'll always support them through thick and thin. But that was the worst 35 minutes of football I've seen since Arteta came to the club.
Yeah.
And there's been a few bad ones. Don't get me wrong. You know, much as I want Arteta to do well, there has been some bad performances. You know, we are so hit and miss. But
there was nothing good about that. Yeah, there was nothing good about it.
So the second half, we started to get back into it a little bit. We started to play a bit better. But again, you kind of always felt that, no, they could potentially go up here and get another. And then Chambers, who I don't think had a particularly good game up until the first Souček goal. You know, he started to come into life a wee bit. And, you know, all of a sudden now I'm seeing people after, you know, a decent second half performance. I know he should be our right back. We should be picking him ahead of Cedric and Bellerin.
Mm.
I'm not sure I'd pick him ahead of Cedric.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did well, and I mean his cross for Craig Dawson's own goal was it was brilliantly hit cross. He just put it into that area where if Dawson hadn't hit it, it was going to Aubameyang. And Aubameyang would have probably put it wide, given his form recently. But no, he hopefully would have put it into the net. So Dawson had no choice but to try and get a touch on it.
Yeah,
it was a fantastic ball. I mean, what did you make of Chambers' overall performance yesterday?
Yeah, so as I said at the beginning of the show, I was gobsmacked that he was in the starting lineup. I'm not going to sit here and try and paint a different picture. I was absolutely bemused as to why he was playing. I just thought, as much as we've gone on about, Bellerin in previous shows and how he's not the player he used to be, I just thought, well, if he's not starting Cedric, surely he has to start Bellerin. So yeah, I wasn't very impressed with, his. I wasn't impressed with anybody in the first half, to be honest, especially in the first kind of 35 minutes, and particularly for the first goal. He was absolutely rinsed by Antonio, which wasn't a good sign for me. But yeah, come second half, going forward, yeah, whatever Arteta said at halftime, and I think that is important to mention, is that the first half performance was atrocious. And we've had some really, really bad performances. There's no disguising that this season. That's why we're 10th at the end of the day. But he does seem to be able to lift the current squad. When they do go into halftime, we've seen again and again, they come out into the second half and, they play like a completely different team. So, whatever he is saying at halftime definitely is having an impact with the players. And I think if they'd got to the point where they were no longer player for him, we just wouldn't see that, we wouldn't see that lift in their performance. So Chambers came out in the second half, and yeah, I think one of the first times I'm ever going to agree with, I think it was Carragher saying that he was like prime Cafu. Literally, like it seemed like he couldn't put a ball in the box that wasn't class. It's like every single delivery, it felt like every single delivery he pinged into the box from that right back position was just delicious. It was dangerous. It was, it was always in the right area where, the defender had to make a decision, had to make a choice. And that's how our second goal came about, because where he put that ball, Dawson couldn't have left it. He just couldn't have left it, because if he had left it, it was a certain goal. So he had to try and get something on it. And lo and behold, he put it in the back of his own net. That's not necessarily a Dawson error. That's more, that it was more credit to the ball that Chambers actually put in. It was in such a difficult position as a defender that he had to make a split second decision, and obviously it came off him and it went in. But yeah, all credit to Chambers. Great second half performance for our second goal. So yeah, I don't particularly think he's the answer. I'll be honest. I think he had a really good performance, but we're talking about Arsenal needing a right back who's going to be consistent across 50 games. 60 games in a season, and against much better, no disrespect to West Ham because they're higher than us in the table, but I want a right back that's going to be able to perform like that against the Man Cities, against the Liverpools, against the Chelseas, against teams in Europe, hopefully in the Champions League. So for me, Chambers will only ever be a squad player, and even that is questionable for me, but great performance on the day from him.
Yeah, and just to sort of touch very quickly on something you said there. I mean, yeah, you have to give some credit to Arteta. He does seem to be able to lift them, and I think it was even more evident when we used to have the water breaks.
Yeah,
if we started off poorly, after the water break, we'd suddenly pick our game up. And the same in the second half. The second half started poorly after the water break. We played well, and he seems to have that ability to sort of G them up a bit.
Yeah.
And you kind of think that at 3-0 down, if that had been under Emery or even Wenger in the later years, we were never getting back into it. But it's a testament to the squad mentality that they picked themselves up, and they fought out a draw. It still wasn't good enough, and we should never have been in that position. Yeah, but at least they did it. And that's something. And then very quickly, obviously, he made some subs. He brought on Smith Rowe, I believe, wasn't it? He
Yeah,
put Smith Rowe on for Xhaka after 74 minutes. Should have happened so much earlier.
Yeah.
As I say, for me, Xhaka had a nightmare of a game. He brought Saka off for Pepe, and again, arguably that should have happened sooner as well, because I don't think Saka did much yesterday at all.
Yeah.
Couple of wee sort of neat interplays with Odegaard, but other than that, again, he didn't really do an awful lot. And then Aubameyang after 81 minutes for Martinelli, and I think that was kind of testament to again how poor a game Aubameyang had yesterday. That he was hooked, and Martinelli brought on. And again, arguably that substitution should have happened sooner. Martinelli should have had more than 10 minutes to try and make an impact, but we were chasing the game 3-2 down. We were getting back into it, and you could see the goal coming. You could see that we were going to get back in, and I was confident we would get back and we would get it to 3-3. My worry was we would get it to 3-3 and then concede a last minute.
That's what.
Goal to West Ham.
That's what I was thinking.
Running out. But a neat bit of work and a fantastic ball in by Pepe. It really was. I mean, do you know what, Pepe? For people saying he's not doing it, he has some fantastic assists, and his stats actually, albeit they're not what they were at Lille in his last season there, but his stats actually over the 2 seasons he's been here are pretty good.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the fact that he was 72 million, you'd be looking at it going,
that's what I was literally going to say.
So a lovely cross, and this man jumped and leapt like a salmon, like Gabriel the other night, or the other week, sorry. And smashing header, absolutely smashing header into the back of the net, 3-3. And I don't know about you, but as I said to you later on last night, I was on the exercise bike for the second half, just because I needed something to do.
Yeah,
because I was getting so agitated. I nearly leapt off the exercise bike, screaming at the TV. I was so happy when he scored.
Yeah,
I really was. How were you feeling at that point?
Yeah, no, I was at that point. I just thought to myself, yes, this is exactly what we need. And I felt at that point there was only going to be one winner. 3-3. I just thought to myself, I was just very conscious, that the clock was ticking, and I just wasn't sure whether we would have enough time to get a fourth. At the same time, I was always wary that, West Ham had players that could kind of hit us on the break. And that was kind of my concern as well. I was like, we've got to keep things tight at the back. But at the same time, it's hard to keep things, super tight at the back when you're obviously chasing the game, and the momentum was with us. And it just seemed like at that point that every time we had the ball, we were just opening them up, and we were just making chance after chance after chance. And I think at that point, I've got to say, Odegaard was just pulling the strings. Like, literally, for me, he was the maestro at that point. Like, he'd grown in the game, and it just seemed like every single pass, that he was playing was being played into a dangerous area. It was being played between the lines. There was none of this sideways or backways. Everything was offensive. Everything was forward. And yeah, I thought he had a fantastic second half. As you said, the Pepe whipped in cross for the third goal was just phenomenal. I think Pepe is very much, he gets judged by that £72 million price tag. But you know what? He can't determine, how much he's worth. That was a conversation between Arsenal and Lille. And for me, I was ecstatic. I was completely ecstatic that he signed for Arsenal. I wanted him to sign for Arsenal. I'm glad he signed for Arsenal. And although I don't think he's had the impact we all would have liked at this point, I do still believe he's going to be some player for Arsenal. But yeah, brilliant cross, fantastic header from Lacazette. And I've got to say right now, Lacazette is probably our best forward player on a consistent basis, because even when he's not scoring goals, he brings so much to that team. And I'm going to be honest, moving forward, that's one position where, as a centre forward, I don't think you're going to see any other name other than his for me.
So all in all, we came out of it with a 3-3 draw. I mean, we could go on forever dissecting this. I mean, they had a couple of chances where Antonio hit the post, from a yard out. was harder to miss that than it was to score it.
Yeah.
I personally felt we were lucky to get away with the draw. We certainly didn't deserve to win the match. Absolute shambles for the first half. Got back into it. We got the point. Fair enough. But we cannot play a game like that this season or ever. In fact, we have 9 cup finals left between now and the end of the season in the league. We need to win every game. Simple as that.
2 drop points, really, when you look at it.
Well, that's it. It's 2 points dropped. It's not 1 point gained. It's 2 points dropped. And I don't care what anybody says. That is how it is. So I'm sort of conscious of time here because I know you've got to shoot off pretty quick. I just want to very quickly touch on, I put out a poll last night about this guy. And I know we talked about it the other night, and I just sort of wanted to see what the fans thought. Obviously, I said that we know there's some personal issues that he's been going through this season, and he's not been himself. But is the weight of captaincy too much for him? Would you replace him as captain? So there's 314 people voted. 61% said take away the armband, and 39% said stick with Aubameyang. Are you surprised by those results?
No, I'm not. And the reason why I'm not is because I do think, as Arsenal fans, and particularly as Arsenal as a fan base, we are quite unhappy. Let's be honest. We're unhappy with our season. We're unhappy where we are in the league. We're unhappy with the fact that we've come out of a lot of the cups without actually, getting a good run or potential silverware. And given the season we've had, I think, we are analysing players' performances, and Aubameyang has not had a good season by his very own standards in comparison to last season. So I'm not surprised by that. And the second thing why I'm not surprised by that is, one, I think that opinion is based on the season we're having as a team, but it's also based on the fact that, as fans, we are reactionary in that, our opinions are based on what's kind of currently happening, which is generally for most human beings and most fans a kind of normal reaction, a normal behavior. For me, I don't think taking the armband away from him with 9 games left of the season will make much difference to the actual outcome of this season. So if we're going to be moving forward with Aubameyang, which I feel we are as a club, I can't see us selling him. Having just signed, a 3-year deal, the money he's on, and let's be honest, when he's playing the way he should be playing, he's easily one of the top 3 strikers in the Premier League, one of the best in Europe. So I can't see us going into next season without Aubameyang. So for me, I think taking the captaincy off him mid-season, or not even mid-season, with 9 games to go, I think if that happens, I think it's curtains for Aubameyang. I don't think he'll be at the club next season, but I don't think that will happen. I think it will be something that will probably be just he'll keep it till the end of the season, and I think a serious conversation will be had over the summer. But I do expect him not to be captain next season. I'll put that out there. I don't think he's the captain that Arsenal require at this time. I think we need a born leader, somebody who's very vocal, somebody who gets stuck in when things are not going well. And as good as Aubameyang is, because he's a phenomenal striker, he's not the leader Arsenal need right now. And that's my honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, okay, thanks. Just as a couple of comments, want to read out to you. I mean, the general consensus was the same thing. Don't strip him of it now.
Yeah.
Potentially look at it in the summer. It makes no sense to do it now. So let me see. We had follow at Boxing Ghana, which is at Winfred on Twitter, said keep the armband, but he can't wear it on the bench. He should be talked to work hard for himself. Coming to training late is a sign of feeling too relaxed instead of training extra. Fair point. Ryan, who is probably still on here, Ryan Allison, who is at Ryan Allison 041. If you don't follow Ryan, please do. He hasn't been acting like a captain recently. He hasn't been the player to drag us through games, and his attitude on the pitch isn't good enough. Still a quality player, but his performances haven't been good enough. Auba hasn't done anything to warrant being captain. And then one more from Jobo the Gunner Bird, who is at Joey Boo 007. I always thought you need to earn the armband, not turn up late and act like a petulant child on the pitch. So, I mean, various different opinions there.
Yeah.
I was just sort of seeing. Yeah. Sorry, one more, which is Gunnar Cal at Explicit Gunnar. The only way Aubameyang can be captain of that team is if he is leading by example. He isn't performing and therefore is ineffective as a captain, as his style of leadership relies purely on his performance. Would give the armband to KT next season. And I mean, that's what I've said, and that's what I said the other night, that it's, you know, he's a lead by example captain, and his performances at the minute aren't leading by example. So, you know,
so what would you do?
A shouty in your face
in this situation?
To be honest with you, I'd drop him.
Okay.
Right now, the way he's playing, I don't think, you know, there are better options than the way he's playing right now. I love Aubameyang, and I still think he's a great player, and that he will come good again and will get goals. But I do think long term, the armband needs to come away from him. If he stays at the club, I think. I actually think, although he did do well, sort of in the latter half of last season, he wasn't as good as he had been, and I do think the weight of expectation on being the captain is getting to him. And he might feel that he wants to be captain, and might feel privileged and everything to be captain, and think that it's going to help him be a legend of the club. But he needs to focus on just scoring goals. Let somebody else worry about leading the team. And so for me, I think Arteta needs to have a difficult conversation with him in the summer. I hope that Aubameyang maybe comes to that decision himself. That would be better. I think he's quite proud. And I don't think it's a decision that he will come to himself. And I worry that if the captaincy is taken from him, that he'll want to leave. But do you know what? If he does, he does. I don't think I want him to stay as a forward player and be a great forward player and be a legend of this club. But I don't think as the captain is the right way to go.
Yeah, I agree.
The problem we have is when Auba isn't captain, Arteta normally puts it on Bellerin. Surely that's worse. No comment. Clearly seems the fans' choice, but whenever it's available, he doesn't get picked for it. No, he doesn't. And I think, you know, Arteta will pick Bellerin, because Bellerin is, you know, he's well liked within the dressing room.
He's been at the club for years.
Yeah. So I mean, that's one to watch. It's certainly one to watch going forward. All right, I'm kind of conscious of the time here, so, you know, thank you very much to everybody who is joined us live. I really enjoyed that tonight. It was good fun.
No, definitely good show.
Good conversations. If anybody does have any more questions, drop them in the chat now quickly. Again, thank you to everybody who's subscribed to our channel as well. We've now over the 100 subscribers. The next goal is 150. So make sure if you haven't subscribed, that you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. Thank you to the matchdayshop.com at Matchday again for sponsorship, and we have been chatting, and he is getting a couple of things over to me, and we're going to be doing a giveaway soon when we get the numbers up a wee bit, but hopefully I will have that soon to be able to show off what we're going to be giving away. G, do you want to run through the socials quickly while we wait for any last questions?
Yep, no problem. So yeah, guys, obviously, thank you for tuning in. You can follow us on all our socials. So we're on Facebook, Cannon Chatter, Instagram, which is at Cannon_Chatter. And you can follow us on Twitch. You can keep up to date with live streams and so forth, which is at Cannon Chatter. Also, you can follow us on our individual Twitter accounts. Now, this is obviously probably one of the best ways to kind of interact with us, whether that's direct message, whether that's kind of like sharing, commenting, you know, on our actual tweets that we put out quite regularly. We regularly do polls and ask for kind of fans' opinions on things. So this is a really, really good way to kind of interact with us and stay in touch with what kind of content we've got coming for you. So obviously that's Twitter, which is at Cannon Chatter, the official, Twitter account. But we also have our individual Twitter account. So Stevens is so it's at SB Cannon Chatter, and mine is at G Talks Arsenal. So yeah. Also remember, if you are, if you've been with us from the beginning, or you're kind of watching this for the first time, and if you do really enjoy the kind of honest and open conversations that we're having as two Gooners, and you want to get involved, please do contact us. But also please do like and subscribe to the channel. It's really, we really do appreciate the support we've had so far, and we just kind of look forward to new support from Arsenal fans. And continued support from some of the guys that have been with us from the start. Please do have conversations with, your mates, your family, work colleagues, anybody that, is a fellow Gooner and would kind of really, appreciate kind of getting involved in the stuff that we're doing or watching the live shows, etc. Because that's the only way we're going to grow as a platform. So, nothing's more powerful than word of mouth. So we really would appreciate that if you were doing that. But yeah, thanks as always. Get following on our socials, and not sure when you're going to see us next, but we're cooking up a plan behind the scenes.
Yeah. Just on the Twitter one very quickly, we're only 81 away now from hitting 5,000 followers on Twitter.
Fantastic.
Which, considering I only set the page up in September, at the very end of August, start of September last year, is phenomenal numbers. And we're so proud of the fact that people want to interact. You will see, I know we're planning on doing our squad review over the next couple of days. We're going to pre-record it and drop it out in 2 parts over the next week or so. We hopefully are going to be doing something at the weekend with Angelo and Diddley from Blast from the Arsenal. I was talking with them earlier on. We're going to catch up later and see what we can put together for you. And then next Friday night, I believe, we'll be back with our preview of the Liverpool game. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we're going to have a guest on with us, so a fan. And it'll not just be our 2 mugs you'll be looking at. So yeah, that should be good. The start of things to come, the start of a new format with us. Right, okay, very quickly, last couple of questions. Buster, I obviously put this one off. What do you think the reasons for Martinelli not getting the minutes we all think he should? For me, I think some of our forwards, the likes of Saka, have been playing fantastic. Aubameyang, he is the captain. He is the talisman. It is hard to drop him, much as I think he should be dropped. And then also Martinelli coming back from a serious injury. I think Arteta's protecting him a little. Any thoughts, G?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of options up front. And let's be completely honest. Saka's had a phenomenal season. He's kind of fallen off a little bit in the last couple of games, but you can't take away anything away from the performance and the season he's had so far. Lacazette has been a consistent performer as centre forward, not always been as clinical as we would have liked, but he consistently performs well, and he's been getting the goals of late. Aubameyang is the club captain. He's on huge wages. He's very influential, when he is on form. And I think Arteta probably is continuing with him because with just that hope that he can find form. Because if he starts banging in the goals, we climb the table a lot quicker. So I just think it's a combination of, as Stephen said, Martinelli's injury, which, let's face it, it wasn't no small injury. It was a big injury for a young lad to actually go through and come back from. Compounded by some of our attacking players, Pepe recent form, Williams recent form, as well as the other 3 players I mentioned. I think it's a combination of those 2 things as to why he's not getting the minutes we would like. But he's one for the future. He's one for the present, but he's definitely one for the future. And I think what we've seen on some of the socials with the videos, they are working really hard with him behind the scenes. So fingers crossed we get to see more of him between now and the end of the season.
Absolutely, but he's going nowhere. So any Arsenal fan that's worried he's going to leave at the end of the season, he's not. He is here for the future. Okay, last question, and I'm going to let you answer this one first. From Chris, is there enough time passed now to put the captaincy back on Chelsea?
You know what? For me, it's got nothing to do with the fact. Yeah, for me, it's got nothing to do with the fact what he did. Some Arsenal fans might actually say, you know, I'm surprised by you saying that, but you know what? I think we're all human beings, and I think we make mistakes. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, we actually, you know, do or we'll say things or react in a certain way that we're not very proud of. But for me, it's not even about what he did. It's just I just don't want him as Arsenal captain. And that's just a personal preference for me. He's a good player. He's a good midfield option. And I think, you know, more will be revealed when we do our kind of squad selections. But for me, moving forward, Arsenal captain material, nah. And I don't think it has anything to do with the fact, you know, how he reacted and he kind of, you know, threw his shirt off and threw the armband, etc., etc. We all make mistakes, you know, we all react in certain ways. But for me, I put it out there, I just don't think he's good enough to be Arsenal captain. So I wouldn't give it to him.
My turn?
Yep.
Right. Get ourselves geared up for this one.
Oh, gosh.
No.
Yeah.
No. No. Do you know what, Chris?
Yeah.
For me, it is everything to do with what he did that night against Crystal Palace. He threw the shirt away. He threw the armband away. He disrespected the club, and he has never once apologised for it. He has come out and said, "Oh, the fans did this," and I do not condone the fans' behaviour in any way. You do not boo your own players. No, under no circumstances. You don't issue death threats to your own players on Instagram or anything like that. Whatever it was that he was saying happened, that is not acceptable. But you do not disrespect the shirt. You can tell the fans to F off all you want. Couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Be passionate, be that person, but you do not disrespect that shirt. And he did it, and I will never forgive him. And I do not want him. You know, I have only come round to accepting him at the club as a squad player at best, because he's not, you know, he isn't good enough if we want to be serious title contenders. He is not good enough. And
he's not.
He just isn't. And anybody that thinks he is, I'm sorry that we have a difference in opinion. And that's the great thing about football and the great thing about being fans. We can have a difference of opinion, and it's okay to have a difference. But for me, no, I don't want them as a starter at the club. I certainly do not want him as captain at the club. I can tolerate him being there, but long term, I still want him gone.
Pretty unanimous then.
Yeah. So, no, nada, no way.
Not happening.
Not. Sorry. There we go. I've had my little rant. Yeah, no, it doesn't work for me at all. On that note, time has gone by really quickly again. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
It always
really
does.
Enjoyed that. And as I say, I will catch up with you probably tomorrow anyway, because we need to organise getting that squad review. Should he stay or should he go now?
Yeah.
Cool. We might even have a wee sing song to it as well. You never know.
Yeah.
And we will drop that out over the next couple of days. In the meantime, guys, yes, please get in contact if you want to appear on any of these shows with us, or if you have any ideas of things you'd like to do with us, other than kill us, that would be great. Get in contact, get involved. So from me, good night. G, you get the final word.
Yeah, good night, guys. Have a good evening, and we'll see you real soon.